Okay. All right.
All right. So we are on with Oklahoma State Senator J.J. Dossett. And one of the reasons that I reached out to you is because you answer my calls. The other reason is because you're a former educator. You've been in the classroom. Yeah.
Absolutely. 10 years at Owasso.
So 10 years teaching little Rams. And so honestly, is that a career that you would be itching to get into right now, the way things are with teachers in the state of Oklahoma?
Times are difficult. It's definitely different than back in 2006 when I got out of Oklahoma State University, and there's nothing else I wanted to do. I wanted to teach. I wanted to coach. A lot of the people I looked up to growing up were teachers and coaches. But now times are different. I'd argue morale's lower with educators, and that's the problem. It's a vital profession. It's like a lot of the vital professions in our communities that we can't have people not doing this job. So no, times are different and not as good, I would argue,
not as good. And I keep seeing it getting harder because now we've got this. I don't even know what to talk how to refer to it. This buzz about critical race theory, and now we're seeing books getting banned in schools again. And I mean, it's like we have somehow regressed. And at the same time, we've seen, in the state of Oklahoma, political divisions get even worse. And then you throw the pandemic on top of the whole thing. And I think a lot of folks are just like, hands in the air, I'm going to find something else. And, is that the case, or am I just whistling in the graveyard?
Absolutely. And I think there has been some studies. I know you're going to interact with Representative Waldron. He's got the data more, but in general, I know retirements are up. So a lot of times teachers would stay past when they're technically eligible to retire for better financial benefits, or they're just happy where they are and they can still do the job. But definitely right now, people are throwing the towel in because, quality of life, it's different. And I guess for a lot of these folks, it's not as good, or they'd stay longer in the profession.
Yeah, I saw a statistic, I don't know if it's correct, that summer retirements were up nearly 40% year to year.
I heard upper 30s. Representative Waldron, I heard that from his study. So he'd have that number, but they're definitely up.
And what about, recruitment at colleges and universities that teach teachers? Are they seeing, the pipeline also start to get restricted? Because if, there's more people leaving and fewer people coming in, that's a pretty bad double whammy.
Absolutely. And then you're stuck with the tough decision of loosening the requirements to become an educator, which is something that as a parent and as a community member, I don't want. I want our workforce to have the best and the brightest in front of our kids, preparing them for what's next in life. So that's, unfortunately, we've seen that already happening. We have emergency certifications that are through the roof, something that was non-existent 10 years ago, almost non-existent, that is.
It was rare, right? It was where there was maybe 100 or 150 statewide, and then it just started going up. And then 2017, of course, we had the big, teacher walkout or whatever, and things kind of seemed to simmer down a hair. It's gone back the other direction, and I think this year they're already tickling the 3,000 mark on emergency certifications for teachers in Oklahoma.
It's become steady, and it's become something that we're all too familiar with right now. Because schools don't have a choice. They have a group of kids, they have a classroom. They have to find someone to be in front of those kids, and that's we absolutely have to do something to strengthen the pipeline that feeds our schools with the professionals to put in front of those kids.
So what is that something? What's the solution here?
It's a combination of things. I've ever since I've been here, before the walkout and the investments we've made in education, we have to be regionally competitive. You have to you have to get to market value for the job. And then honestly, there's a lot of things that come out of this building that are, you mentioned some things before, but it's a wide range of things. The job's getting tougher and the pay's not significantly matching the level of stress that's added to the job.
Well, I'll give you an example from where I'm sitting. If I was a teacher and the Oklahoma legislature came out and said, "Yeah, we're not going to allow your school to require masks," I'd be like, "Well, shouldn't that be up to my PTA, my school board, my community, and me and my coworkers, and not somebody in Oklahoma City?" Because obviously, every school's different, every situation's different. How is it that it just seems like such a I don't understand the reasoning behind that legislation. But if I was a teacher, I'd be like, "Oh, I don't think so. I mean, I don't think Big Brother should be doing that." I
Right.
don't know.
Some mandates out of this building. I mean, that it's very, then it's not good for the morale of educators and schools in general. So everybody claims they like local control until they want the big government up here to come in and tell them what they can and can't do. So I mean, we should be pushing decisions down to local school boards. I mean, I've stood by that, and it's definitely, a local school board can make a better decision for the students of a community than the capital here, where you have, I mean, you got rural, urban, suburban, communities are all different.
Right.
We can't have a rural run legislature telling suburban, my communities, what they can and can't do. We shouldn't have that. We should hand those responsibilities off to the local school boards to make those decisions.
Well, it seems like they would be, boots on the ground with eyes on the immediate situation and know exactly what's going on. And I don't know. I hate to argue because, well, one way or the other, because I always get in trouble for having an opinion in my job, but that one just still mystifies me. I just absolutely don't get it. So other than raising pay for teachers, I mean, that seems like an obvious one. If we, incentivize a little better with better pay. But I mean, there's kind of a cultural, used to be teachers commanded a little more respect, I think, as a profession. I mean, maybe I'm just getting old, but it seems to me like that has waned.
I feel like I'm getting old too, as John mentioned in
A lot
in
of
the
brown
chat.
on that beard there.
Well, it's getting a little more, but I turned 38 today, so I'm getting
Congratulations. Happy birthday.
well,
I
thank
had
you.
no idea. What a
But
great way to celebrate your birthday, getting, handed by the evil media.
No, that's all right. That's all right. You have an important job to do, and I'm glad you do it. So absolutely, I have nostalgia for when I was a kid, when I was younger, and I think teachers did. Teachers may have had it better. It seems like it to me. And it's not just the pay. I mentioned pay, but education and investment. So teachers' quality of life has to do with how many kids they have in their class. Not just coming, because they're never ever going to be wealthy. I mean, it's a profession they've signed up for different reasons than making more money, than making more money just in general. So, I mean, we need to keep the pay competitive so these people can have a quality of life at home, but also quality of life at work, and making sure teachers have the resources they need to. And kids right now are in a place that's not where we were, with pandemics, with technology, with social media. We just need to make sure teachers have resources they need at their workplace, and have a competitive wage to make sure that we can get people to do the job.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you. And that is a problem, an ongoing issue where teachers who, like you mentioned, aren't making that much money, are having to go out and spend their own money on classroom supplies and projects and stuff. That is unconscionable. And I mean, it's one thing if they want to do something that's just not even in the books, but it's something really special they want to do for the kids because it's in their field of interest. And so they go out and spend the money to do, I don't know, let's say build rockets and launch rockets from the football field. Okay. The schools, I could see the school district going, yeah, we're not going to buy those rockets, Mr. Smith or Miss Jones, but if you want to do it, have at it. On the other hand, just having construction papers so they can put up some kind of a, fall project on their wall, that seems to me like the school district should be stepping up. In the last, like you said, about the last decade, we've seen more and more private money having to go out from teachers just to do their job. So I think that's what you're talking about, right?
Absolutely. And yeah, so resources like that. And then when you do that, it creates inequity because some communities can't afford to throw in there and other communities can't. So, I mean, absolutely. They just need the resource, the tools to do the job. And a lot of times, I mean, you talk to every teacher across the state, everyone uses their own money. I did it too, just to make sure that I had the things I needed in my classroom. Just so I could teach kids what they need to know, because I wasn't happy if I couldn't adequately teach the students what I'm supposed to be teaching them. So yeah, I think it's definitely, the funding part's a two-pronged deal. We do have to pay these people to get them to do the job, pay them enough, market value, but also we need to make sure they have up-to-date textbooks, they have up-to-date technology, they have like you mentioned, even supplemental supplies like construction paper, something they don't have to go to Office Depot and buy themselves. They need access to these things without having to bend over backwards.
And textbooks are not cheap. They're ridiculously expensive. And I would presume that we're going more towards online resources, right? Maybe textbooks that are in the cloud rather than physical hard copies that you hand out to the kids. Or I would imagine that the classrooms are heading that direction.
Sure, but the software still, you still pay the companies for the materials. So Chromebooks, like my kids and Owasso has gone, a lot of school districts are going to Chromebooks, issue a Chromebook in like the 6th grade, and they keep it till they graduate. So absolutely, but there still is cost involved there. And actually Oklahoma's done better than we, like about 4 or 5 years ago, we cut the textbook funding. So then we were stuck in a situation where we had textbooks that were outdated. But we have made that investment. So we've done some things to move in the right direction. But the bigger problem is what we've already discussed, is the lack of people that are willing to stay in and do this job, and the lack of people who are signing up on the front end to do this job.
So what else has the legislature done that you're happy with, or that you think we need to do more of?
Well, it started, like you said, with the teacher walkout. I mean, the legislature would not have invested that money in education if it wasn't for a pending teacher walkout, because communities across the state, all over the state, came here and said, it's been long enough. We'll no longer cut education. We have to invest. We have to compete with every state around us, which invests more in education. We're tired of seeing our colleagues go to Texas, or go to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, go to Kansas City area, go over to Bentonville, Fayetteville. So we did invest, but I would argue it wasn't this body on its own. It would not have happened unless the state said to this building, you will invest in education. So we've steadily moved in the right direction by investing. That historic investment we did after the teachers made us. But I have concerns. You said what's good, but my mind right now is, my concerns are, we've got federal stimulus money that's flowing into the state, as it is all states. In this last year, we went out of our way to cut corporate and income taxes, which is the same exact thing we did last time we had federal stimulus money coming in. It led to years of education cuts after, because we did not have the revenue. So we need to be responsible with our finances here in this building in the state of Oklahoma,
and do a little long-term planning. I mean,
yes.
The road folks figured it out. The Department of Transportation figured it out. You got to plan 8 or 10 years ahead in order to be able to accomplish anything. And I see Representative Waldron's here. Come on in, John. We started a little early because Kevin jumped the gun, and I was just sitting at my computer, and I see Senator Dossett's entered your room. It was 11.
Yeah.
So I said, well, you know what? Since you're here, I'm just going to start picking your brain right now.
Okay, cool.
But I understand.
I was happy to listen to what Senator Dossett had to say. Happy birthday, JJ.
See, he knew. I had no idea.
Have fond memories of 38.
Yeah, I kind of vaguely remember 38. We don't need to go down that road, boys. So, John, you just like just wrapped up, right? An interim study on this
Yep.
issue. And specifically, we're talking about, we're losing our teachers. We're not retaining them, and we're not recruiting new ones either.
Yep.
Either.
Record numbers this year, and a lot more are already planning to leave at the end of the current year.
So please go through some of those numbers for us, if you would.
Okay, well, we had 3,800 over the summer. Normally, we might expect to see 1,000 teachers retire, but 3,800 this year, partly because the raise we gave them 3 years ago allowed people to retire at the best possible rate after 3 years of that salary level. But ordinarily, you could expect a lot of teachers to stay in the profession 2, 3, 5 more years because they enjoy working in the classroom. So what does it tell you? That a lot of those people chose to get out the moment they could this year. And I'll tell you what that tells you. JJ's right. The classroom's got a lot more burdens on it now. It's a lot harder to be a teacher. We took away protections for teachers in terms of mask mandates in the middle of a pandemic. We called them Marxists. So what would you do if you were in the classroom and you were, say, 60 years old and you felt your health might be at risk?
Yeah, and I actually kind of made that point earlier, talking about the mask mandate ban essentially coming from the legislature and our governor.
Yes, sir.
Which, if I was a classroom teacher and you weren't here at the time, but I'll just reiterate, I would have been, what? Are you kidding me? What do they know about what happens in my classroom? And so I get that. And also we've seen, and as Senator Dossett's been talking about here, we've seen so many emergency certifications that essentially did not exist or barely existed a decade ago.
Right.
Go ahead.
Well, now we're going to, Senator Dossett's right. The danger is that becomes the new norm. First of all, lots of great people come in as emergency certified teachers, and many people who are emergency certified are teachers certified in other fields, and they're teaching in a field for which they're not certified. So they receive an emergency certification. Those qualifications aside, the sheer number of emergency certifications is alarming, especially when you consider that an eCert teacher on average stays 3 years in the classroom, and it costs about $11,000 to onboard a new teacher. So add $11,000 to the cost of hiring that emergency certified teacher, because you're going to be paying 3 years from now to hire another emergency certified teacher. And it takes years to develop the emotional composure, the pedagogy, the content knowledge to really be effective at the job. And we have teachers who basically have a 3-year career span now. Very alarming. It costs us money, but even worse, it costs us in terms of student learning.
Well, any employer will tell you, if I can only retain my employees for 3 to 5 years before I have to turn them over and like you said, onboard new ones and train them and get them in the job, and about the time they start getting their feet on the ground and getting pretty decent, they're gone, and I got to bring in new folks. I mean, nobody could run a business like that, and nor would they try. And so but we don't have a choice. And Senator Dossett, I'll throw it back to you for a second. You made this point earlier. We don't have a choice here. We have to teach our children. We have to have our schools open. This is not optional. So I'll go back to, what the heck do we do about it?
So we have, I mean, action needs to start now, and it can start absolutely right here in our capital. We have to find best practices on how to get people in this job. I mean, John studied this far more than I have recently, but it's a vital profession. I mean, what do we do when we don't have teachers in classrooms? I mean, I see it the same thing as when we don't have police officers on patrol, or when we don't have firefighters on call, or healthcare professionals and so
imagine if we tried to run our police stations like a business. So how does that work? And I think running our schools like a business, the consequence of that is you get a business you can't run. Everything JJ said is Senator Dossett, excuse me, he's my
it's cool.
I
actually
caramel friend. Everything
well,
Senator Dossett said is true.
Right. John, weren't you formerly a teacher as well?
Yeah. In fact, we're both high school social studies teachers. Brothers.
Okay. So I'll ask you what I asked him earlier, which was, do you feel like the profession has less esteem from the public, from our culture, from I'm just saying, when I was younger, it seemed to me teachers got more respect for being teachers, and that now it's not the same.
I think a lot of people still have a great deal of respect for educators, and I think education is, on the whole, a respected profession. When polled, parents tend to say that they like their teachers, but they're also receiving a lot of disrespect from vocal minorities that have been empowered by the nature of our times to go after educators. And some of them serve in the Oklahoma State Legislature, and that's a problem.
And that is something that I kind of alluded to earlier as well with the senator, is that it seems like, for instance, this the mask mandate, and then all this talk about critical race theory, and that I don't think even most people even understand what that is or why it is. They just know that that's something, and that's got to make teachers nervous.
Yep.
Trying to work in that kind of environment. So I'm sorry, go ahead. You had something to say.
Well, consider how it works. We create this language about critical race theory being offered in the classroom without evidence. There's no proof that anybody has seen these kind of university academic programs being taught in our schools. But we create this impression that that's what's happening. And then we empower students and parents to make accusations against teachers. Well, they're saying that they're doing this for the sake of freedom and protecting students from indoctrination. But what happens when you create a condition of a secret or open accusation against teachers? It's the Salem witch trials all over again. And what happens when we create a climate of fear in the professional teaching corps? They're going to be chilled. That is, they're going to be reluctant to take up controversial subjects. For example, the Holocaust. Already in Texas, we've seen that under their new laws, teachers and parents are asking questions like, well, the Holocaust is a controversial subject. Shouldn't we present the other viewpoint? Is that the Nazi viewpoint?
Yeah, of
Right.
the Holocaust. That's the one that absolutely blew my mind. Are you kidding me?
That is the logical conclusion of critical race theory bills. They take us right off the cliff.
Right, and the school bus.
Yeah,
Off the cliff is the image that I'm picturing right there. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you said it better than me.
So Senator Dossett mentioned that, one thing that we can address is pay. We can try to incentivize folks financially a little better. I brought up the idea of maybe we can get them a little more money for materials, classroom materials and stuff like that, so they're not having to go to the Walmart and buy their own stuff. But I think part of the issue is going to be at the beginning of this process, the beginning of the pipeline, getting high school kids into college,
right,
looking to do a teaching career. Senator Dossett wanted to be a teacher. I bet you wanted to be a teacher.
Yep.
I'm wondering if this next generation is going to want to be teachers with all of this going.
Right. Russell, did you know that when they take a career survey at the end of the ACT, and in the last exam, only 2% of the ACT recipients who responded listed teacher as a preferred profession? 2%.
What has that been historically? Do you know?
Well, it's been going down for years. A couple years ago, it was 4%. We were panicked about that. Pretty soon, nobody's going to want to be a teacher because we've made them society's punching bag. And then we're all in very deep trouble.
And that's kind of what I was talking about before. Well,
Yep.
well, you guys have been awesome. And, I don't want to spend a whole bunch more time because, for one thing, I think Zoom will shut me down after about a half hour. I'm using the free version. But I'll just throw it to both of you, and we'll start with Senator Dossett. Final thoughts before we wrap up, or anything, that I should have asked you and stupidly didn't?
No, I just appreciate you covering it, Russell. I mean, it is an issue, and I really appreciate John's points. Is we can't degrade a profession over and over and over again, and then wonder why our kids don't want to do it. So I think we do need a little bit of what you're talking about. We need to respect this profession. Make sure they have the tools they need. That's why I ran for office. That's why I wanted to do the job I'm doing now. It's because we didn't have the tools we needed, and my class sizes were too big, and compensation wasn't nearly as close to market value as it is now. But to get that respect, that's the element that I think we really need to to find. And we can start by not degrading, as John said, making teachers our punching bag. Because any profession like that, I mean, kids are naturally, they're not going to migrate towards it. So
Yeah.
I mean,
I
I really appreciate you bringing that up, John. And that's how to get respect back to this profession. I mean, I appreciate you covering this, because just talking about what we've talked about, hopefully can fall on some ears of people who can help make a change on that front.
Thank you, JJ.
I cover it because education is absolutely foundational to everything we want in our society. It is foundational to our economy. It's foundational to our government and to our justice system. There's just no getting around all that. John, final thoughts or anything else that you'd like to add before we wrap up?
Every problem in education connects to the teacher pipeline. If you want to improve test scores, improve competency, help fulfill people's personal development, if you want Oklahoma to be a top 10 state in education, if you want to provide access to mental health resources for kids who are 26% more likely to think about suicide these days, then you have to start with rebuilding and restoring the professional teaching core. Other than, if we don't tackle this problem, then we can throw as much money as we want into the school system. We're just going to keep spending it onboarding the next brand new teacher. This is fundamental to everything, and not just education, as you said. It's fundamental to the idea of a society based on respect. Because after all, how can we teach our children to be respectful and then put them in a public school environment where the teachers are not respected? How does our society work?
It's a open-ended question that I wouldn't touch with somebody else's 10-foot pole. It won't work, frankly. This is the answer, the short answer.
Yeah.
And look, just having been an adult in a classroom full of kids, I'm going to tell you, it's hard enough to get their respect anyway.
Right.
Everything is perfectly golden.
Right. Much less indoctrinate them. How are we ever going to indoctrinate them?
Fire them up with a bunch of Fox News nonsense and then send them to class to tell their teacher about critical race theory. I can just imagine the nightmare. Well, guys, you've been awesome. And isn't it nice that we can have a Republican and a Democrat on at the same time and not yelling at each other and kind of seeming to kind of agree on some of this stuff? So pretty much all of it, really. Maybe it's that common thread of having been in the classroom, having been in the trenches, and, you know, it's the person in the foxhole next to you is your buddy for life, right? So thank you very much, gentlemen. And we will, oh, well, that's true. You are both Democrats. That's, I'm sorry. I was just gonna
text John. I bet I can the Republican tag on this.
Right. I was going to put you.
He's a little more country than me.
I am in deep, serious trouble. Well, that's all right. You're from Owasso, so I guess I figured there weren't any Democrats up there. I'm teasing.
One of the best.
There's not a lot.
There's
not a lot, but
we will send one that matches Owasso values. Yeah. So I'll say
that's JJ.
Outstanding. Well, listen, guys, thank you, and I'll better shut up before I get into any more. So I'll end it, and we'll talk soon. Yes.
Yeah, Russell, thank you very much for paying attention to this important issue.
Absolutely. And you guys got my digits, so please don't be shy about hitting my phone if you got something.
All right, no problem.
Okay?
Dude, thanks, Russell.
Take care.